Hello. I wanted to share this project that I have been working on for about the past week. Um, it was an idea that I discussed with one of my coworkers at the beginning of the week, and um, it just kind of spiraled or tumbled into a full-fledged project. I was just doing a little bit at a time, and I started to realize that this was actually possible, and one thing led to another. So rather than getting into the details, I'll just give a short demo right now. So I'll start by running this little program um, on the command line. It's using a local config file. What it's doing is when I press enter, it's going to go and check the issue list on this repository. And this is an empty repository. I just cleaned it out. It has some previous commits, but you can ignore those. Right now, it just has this empty README. The only reason it has an empty file in it is because my program results in errors if the repository is completely empty. Regardless, it's effectively an empty repo. So I'm going to start by just creating an issue. I'm just going to say, I'm going to call it initial file setup. And I'm going to tell it to add a Gandalf quote to the README. I'm also going to tell it to add a main.go file. Also add a main.go file that prints hello world. And then right now the program is currently written such that it expects a file list of any files that are expected to be modified or added. So I'm going to specify readme.md and main.go, which does not currently exist in the repository, but I'm expecting it to be added. So this is kind of like if I was writing an issue that I intended like an actual human to pick up. So I'm going to go ahead and submit the issue, and then I'm going to go back to my program. I'm going to press enter. It already copied an LLM prompt to the clipboard. So I'll show you what that looks like later. But right now, because I want to kind of emulate what I would like the future behavior to look like, what I'm doing is pasting the prompt into ChatGPT, GPT-4, and I'm going to copy and paste the output into a file. Ultimately, I want to use OpenAI's API, but I have not been approved for access yet. I'm on the wait list. Anyway, my GPT response is done, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that, paste it to the PolPal response file, and I'm going to go ahead and press enter here. And it's doing some work in the background. It successfully opened a code change request. So if I click on this pull request link, oh, it opened it in the wrong tab. Let me open it over here. You can see that there is this automatic commit. It was created under my account. One thing to do later is I want it to create this commit under like a bot account, but that's not as I guess fun for me at the moment. So I'm just doing the fun stuff first. So here it's describing what it did. Added a Gandalf quote to the README as requested. Created a main.go file with a simple hello world program in Golang. You'll notice that this text is not what I wrote out. This is actually coming from GPT. It resolves this issue. Let's look at what the files changed looks like. It's adding this Gandalf quote to the README. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us, and hello world. So since it's my commit, I can't actually approve it. So I'm just going to go ahead and merge it. Okay, now let's do something a little more complicated, I guess. So let's create another issue. Let us say setup index.html. Add an index.html file with the Gandalf quote from the README in the body. Okay. The contents of index.html should be horizontally and vertically centered with a flex layout. What else? Serve the index.html file from main.go on port 8080. Okay, so it does need to see, I'm going to give it the files list. It does need the README, even though I'm not expecting it to modify the README. It will need to see the README in order to see the Gandalf quote. It's going to add index.html, and it needs to update main.go to serve index.html. All right, so that should be good. Submit new issue. Now I'm gonna do the same thing. Press enter to select an issue, copy to the clipboard, go to GPT, paste, enter. So this copy to clipboard, paste, enter, and GPT, copy, response. Like I said, I'm hoping that will be fully automated at some point. So this would just be like a bot running on a server somewhere monitoring GitHub issues. And when it notices a new one, it would automatically prompt GPT-4, automatically create a pull request, and basically there's no like manual step for like this part that I'm talking over right now. All right, so I have the response. I am going to paste that into my response file and save, and I'm going to press enter over here. It went ahead and created another pull request. So let's check that out. Set up index.html. Let's see what code it changed. So index.html, it looks like it's doing some flex layout kind of stuff. It is adding the Gandalf quote to the body. And here we see a route handler for index.html and servers being set up on port 8080. So that seems good. So let's go ahead and merge it. And you know, I would test it, but you know, after testing it enough times, I'm pretty confident it will work. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do something even more like advanced, and I'm just gonna expect it to work it then, hopefully. So I'm just gonna keep like, I'm gonna make a couple more issues and then I'll test it. All right, so next issue I'm gonna create. Add a new endpoint. Let's be more specific. Add a numbers endpoint. Put that in quotes. Okay. Implement a new endpoint in main.go. It should be a get request to /API/numbers. It should return a random integer between, I would say like 1 and 100, but let's do something a little more tricky. Let's do like between 14. Yeah, let's do between 14 and 37. and 37. Okay. Add a button to index.html, which makes a request to the API/numbers endpoint and displays the value returned in the body. Let's see. Let's also tell it like, so I noticed that it put the Gandalf quote directly into the body without any other elements. So I'm going to say also add a content section to, actually, maybe let's tell it to add the content section first. So add a content section to index.html. Add a content section to index.html that is a slightly different color than the body background color, just because I'm expecting it to look nicer if we do that. Hopefully, let's just clarify. It should still be horizontally and vertically centered. Okay. Yeah, let's try that. Oh, and I need to specify the files list. Files, main.go, index.html. Submit issue, enter, paste. I only have 25 requests every 3 hours, so hopefully I don't run out. I mean, we've only done like 3 or 4 prompts at this point, so I think we'll be fine. Okay, I'm gonna copy the response. I was considering if I'll show you the prompts yet, but let's do one more issue after this, and then we can do it. Okay. It's almost done generating index.html. It did add the content section. I'm observing the GPT output as it happens. You know what? I'll actually show you the next issue. The next issue we create, I'll show the full like setup, and I'll like explain a little bit of what's going on, because I think you get the idea at this point. Okay, so I'm saving that, pressing enter over here. Created a new pull request. Let's take a look at that. Add numbers endpoint. Let's see what it did. Here's adding some styling, adding a script to invoke this new endpoint, get the text, set this number display inner HTML to the value returned. Okay, in the Go file, it is, oh, it's actually setting up like the seed for the random number generator. It's implementing the endpoint. It's doing random number. So this would be, I think, from what, 0 to 23 plus 14. So that should be between 14 and what, like 37. What did I ask for? Oh, wrong repository. Yeah, 14 and 37. Okay. And yeah, that looks like it should work. Let's just go ahead and merge without even testing it. Okay, and then the last thing I'm gonna do, and I'll actually show the full like manual process at this point, and ruin the magic. I guess it's not ruined. I'm still really excited by it, even with this manual step. OpenAI, just give me API access, please. Okay. So I'm going to create another issue. New issue. Um, let's just tell it to, I mean, this will be, okay, yeah. Let's, since I'm going to be updating like different unrelated things, I don't know what to put in the title. I'll just put some updates. Okay. I'm going to say, add a quote from Sam Gamgee to the readme and index.html. Okay. When the number is retrieved in index.html, the number is retrieved in index.html, if it is divisible by 3, set the content background color, or set the body background color to red. If it is divisible by 2, set the body background color to green. Otherwise, set the body background color to white. Okay. What else do I want to do? Let's tell it to use a yeah, let's just keep it there. So this shouldn't require touching main.go, so we'll just pass in readme.md and index.html. readme.md and index.html. Submit. Made a new issue. Press enter. Okay. Okay, and I'll show you here. It says to put the response, pull power response.txt. Oh, I didn't notice I didn't have a new line there until now. First I'll show you what the LLM request looks like. So there's actually a file for that in case I don't use in case I decide not to use the clipboard. But this is what the prompt that was copied to my clipboard looks like. So what it does first is, so an LLM is just basically like something that takes in some tokens, like some text, and it just probabilistically decides like what should the next text be. So how do you turn a repository in like this structure of files and like not pure text into a prompt that can just be fed into like a straight up text input, and then ensure the output is produced in such a way that you can then modify that repository and then create a commit and pull request and everything. Like at first glance, that doesn't seem like it would be straightforward, but it actually is very straightforward. So the first thing I do is populate this template. In fact, let me just show you what the template looks like. If I go into my LLM package / code change request template, this is what the template looks like. Let me make this bigger. So it iterates over the files from the file list. If you remember, files : comma separated file list. It iterates over that, and it puts the name of each file and the contents of the file. The code that actually like gets these checks out the repository and gets these files, it's another story, and honestly I'm not particularly interested in getting into it in this video, though I might do that some other time. So it basically gives the LLM the state of the current repository by putting all these files back to back in the prompt. And then it has this static text: modify the files above to accomplish the following task. And then it's subject and the body from the commit message. And then this is how you get a reliable response that can be parsed. Respond in the exact format: files, the file path and contents, and then this is just a static thing, or I guess it's not static. It would say like new main.go contents or new index.html contents, but the LLM will understand that this is where, so it takes the template, please respond in this exact format, and then it understands that this is where it's going to basically copy and paste that code, the updated code that it generates. And then there's also a section for additional context about your changes, and that is what I'm using as the commit message body and the pull request body, or part of the pull request body. Okay, so that's what the template looks like. Now, this is what this actual prompt from this issue I just created looks like. So file name readme.md, contents is this Gandalf quote, index.html, it's the index.html, but like with some safe characters, I guess. Still, the LLM knows what to do with it. Modify the files above to accomplish the following tasks. Subject some updates. Body, add a quote from Sam Gamgee to the readme in index.html. When the number is retrieved in index.html, if it is divisible by 3, set the body background color to red. If it's divisible by 2, set the body background color to green, otherwise use white. Respond in the exact format. Files, name readme.md, contents, readme.md contents, likewise for index.html, and notes. Okay, so now we copy this. It's probably already in my clipboard, but whatever. Then I'm gonna go to here. I'll just pull in my OpenAI chat. I'm talking to GPT-4. Haven't tested this with GPT-3. I haven't really pushed the limitations, but I have some theories about what the limitations are, which I'll get to soon. So I'm going to paste that. GPT-4 does take a little bit of time to generate the response, but like this is ridiculously fast for like, I don't know, it's not convenient for like recording a video, but you got to admit that this is still like pretty cool, the speed at which it can do this. Okay, we can already see that it's adding that Sam Gamgee quote. There's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. Unfortunately, it does not realize that in a markdown file, if you only have one new line here, this text will actually appear on the same line in the rendered markdown. But there's some evolution to this project that I want to talk about, where I'll get to how to address things like that. Okay. Oh, it even added a title to the page. I didn't even notice that. And then here we see some logic around the background color and the number returned from the endpoint. And what did it also add? Okay, yeah, it also added the Sam Gamgee quote to the content of the body. Okay, and it described the changes it made. Added a quote from Sam Gamgee to both the README and index.html files. Since I'm going into like what's going on, let me go ahead and show you. Well, first let me copy this. And then pullpal response.txt. So I'm just going to paste it directly into there. And I have some parsing code that I've written, which will take this and separate the different parts and do the stuff. Let me go ahead and show you the temporary repository that this tool checked out. I think it's in /tmp/ my temp repo. Thursday, January. No, this is from a previous test, I think. Hold on. I need to open up a new terminal and look at something privately. Has my secret GitHub token in it. Actually, nah, I'll just delete the token before I upload this video. So this is No, it's probably not a good idea, is it? Okay. I am... Okay. Okay. Oh, that's not even configured in here. It's in command root / temp / pull power repo. Okay, there we go. So if I show the current git status, you can see this previous commit, which says is created by me, was not actually created by me. Add a numbers endpoint. This is the previous commit that was added. In fact, one interesting thing which I still need to address is okay. If I actually look at the commit history in here, that commit message is not preserved. These are like merge pull requests, so I can I get basically the subject of the pull request right here, add a numbers endpoint, but the rest of that nice body is not there. And I think it's because I have to change some like squash and merge settings in the GitHub repository. I do want to add Garrett support at some point, which would remove this issue. I have implemented in a way that should make it pretty easy to add Garrett support, but I'll get into that later. Let's continue. Okay, so I have already saved, just to get back to this, I've already saved the response in this file. Press enter when ready to parse response. It should create the no pull request 18, and some updates. Let's just look at the diff. It updated the title from Gandalf quote to Gandalf and Sam quotes. It parsed the number response as an integer, because before it was just a string. It's doing the divisibility, and yeah, that looks good. Okay, now if you'll remember, I haven't tested anything, so let's just see what happens when I try. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull the main branch. Oh, and then this is the temporary repo that the tool is using. So now if I do git log, you'll see that this new commit is now here. And what else? Git branch. You can see it's created like a separate branch for each one of these pull requests that it's made. There's probably a better way to do it than generating like these random branch names, but like I said, I want to do the fun stuff first. Okay, now let's run it. Go run. No errors so far. So I'm expecting. Here's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting. Content vertically and horizontally centered. Content different color from body. Body background color based on endpoint response. Endpoint response random number between, I don't know, 14 and 37. Yeah, I think that's, oh, and I think I asked, okay, let's see how that looks. Localhost 8080. Okay, it's a little small. All we have to do, yeah, so it has the Gandalf quote, it has the Sam Gamgee quote, get random number, 21, divisible by 3, so red background. 26 divisible by 2, so green background. 22, 15, 36, 33, 31. Not divisible by 2, not divisible by 3. Okay. So there is one thing that I asked for that it did not do, which is I thought that I asked to make the background color of the content different from the background color of the body. Um, or what it could have done is maybe it did do that, but maybe the way it implemented it was by making the body a non-white color and making the content a white color. That's probably what it did. And then when I asked it to change the body color to white, that mitigated those previous requests. But this is just pretty good. I haven't written any of this code. Like, all I did was just describe what I wanted done. Like, that's pretty cool, I think. So as far as future improvements, so one thing I would like is one of the next steps. I had a previous experiment where I experimented with another prompt. Okay, it's not there, but it's in notes, I think. Sample prompt.txt. Okay, so this is the GitHub issue prompt that I used. I also tested another prompt in the early phases before I wrote any code for this, for PR comment prompt. And the idea here is that you include the contents of the file that the comment is left on, just like in the other template. And then this modify the file above to address the following comment is the same. The only difference is that it displays the specific code on the line that the comment was left on, and includes the text of the comment. But everything else is the same. Respond in this exact format, add the additional notes about your changes. So what I need to do there is basically populate this prompt, populate this template to prompt the LLM whenever a comment is left on an open pull request, and then update the existing pull request rather than creating a new one. Yeah, so that's one thing I want to do. Another thing that is, as far as I understand, I'm no expert, but as far as I understand, one of the main limitations is going to be the sheer amount of text that you can put into the prompt and get back. So I haven't really hit any roadblocks at this point. I haven't hit the I haven't found the limits of this tool yet. But I'm imagining one of the first limits I'm going to hit is as files start to get very large and as there start to get to be many, many files, my expectation is that eventually the output would get lower and lower quality, and maybe the output just wouldn't even work. So what I'm imagining in that case, how to deal with that is rather than just specifying like the files and then providing the entire file to the LLM, allowing the option to specify sections of files or functions. So maybe I give it lines 37 to 100 of main.go rather than the entire contents of main.go. And then I expect it to give me the replacement, and then I can just insert that replacement that GPT gives me into the file rather than overwriting the whole file. Overwriting it is nice and easy for now, but I'm expecting it to display some limitations at some point. Okay, yeah, so let's just take a quick look at some of the implementation. So there's kind of three main packages. There's an LLM package, which handles most of the things around turning uh, information from an issue and from a local repository into a prompt for the LLM. So that's as simple as I have this code change request structure that's populated outside of this package, a file list where a file is defined by a path and contents, subject, a body, an issue ID, which in this case I'm using the GitHub issue number, which is not the same as the GitHub issue ID I learned, but it's the ID for my purposes for this tool. So the issue number is the ID for my purposes, even though GitHub would disagree technically. So this is just used to populate that template. I think if we go down here to get prompt, it's a function defined on this structure, which simply parses the file code change request, which is that template I showed you earlier, and executes on that template and returns the result. Okay, code change response is basically what you would expect the end result of pasting the response from the LLM and parsing it to look like. So you expect this file list, contents and names of, or paths for each file, plus notes. And it has a string version just kind of as a helper, but you don't actually need it for the basic functionality. And then there's this parse section, which has the logic for like actually taking that response, splitting it up, taking like the relevant sections out. I'm not going to get into it right now. So that's basically the LLM package, parsing and templating for GPT prompts and GPT responses. Then we have the VC version control package. I'm trying to make this pretty generic because I do, like I said earlier, I do want to implement Garrett functionality at some point. So the common file defines some more generic things. So this ID of an issue, which has an ID, subject, body, URL, an author, which has an email handle, and token. In this case, the token is like this GitHub access token, which I've created in the GitHub UI. And a basic definition for repository, which is actually backed by a git.repository from this GoGit package. There's also on repository, I've defined some basic helper functions to create the connection strings for both SSH and HTTPS. And then I've defined an interface for version control client. So basically, I have a GitHub implementation for this. And there's still like functionality I want to add to this interface, but for now, the basic behavior is there needs to be a function to list open issues. There needs to be functionality for opening a code change request. Tried to use the phrase code change request rather than pull request because in Garrett, it's not called a pull request. So open a code change request, basically just like do pull request or push a new change set to Garrett or whatever. Get local file, which will basically, assuming that the repository has been checked out somewhere locally on the machine running this tool, this will get the LLM.file, the contents and the path of a file at a provided path. So this is how, when we read the issue and parse the file list, this is how we actually retrieve the current state of the contents of the file to populate the prompt to go to GPT. Start commit, basically create a work tree in GitHub or in Git and allow you to start adding files to be staged for commit. Replace or add local file will take an LLM.file path and contents and just write that to the path. If it exists, it would overwrite it, and if it doesn't exist, it would just create it. And I believe this also includes functionality for adding this file to a commit. So it overrides or adds the file, and then it actually applies it to the commit, assuming that the commit started, and then there's a finish commit function. So if I go to the GitHub implementation of this interface, it's a lot more code. So I have this GitHub client. I'm going to just skim through this. So there's some new GitHub client functionality, and this sets up some authentication based on the provided GitHub credentials. It also checks out, it clones the repository to that local path, that like temp/pull. It's a configurable path. It's not anywhere specific, but it will authenticate to GitHub using this, what's it called? I think it's this one. This Go GitHub library is used to do things like creating a pull request and reading issues. This other stuff is for dealing with like the local Git commands, creating a work tree, adding files to a commit, creating a commit, checking out branches, etc. So open code change request. It creates a branch based on like a random branch name. So I got GPT to give me like a function to make a random branch name. It makes a pull request, and then it returns the URL, which is printed out elsewhere in the program. List open issues is kind of similar. It's listing issues by repo from the GitHub client, and then populating my like custom issue type accordingly. Get local file, it's just reading a file from full path, where the full path is the local repo path joined with the file path passed in. And if the error is that the file doesn't exist, then I'm just returning an empty file, because I don't want errors if the issue is requesting to create a file. So in that case, I want the prompt to just say like, this file, to assume it does exist, it's just an empty file. So it's not actually like, this file doesn't actually exist in this case, but for the prompt's purposes, it does exist as an empty file. Start commit, create a new work tree, assuming that there's not an ongoing work tree. So you're expected that you're going to call start commit, then replace or add local file a bunch of times for however many files you have to update. And then you're going to call finish commit to actually commit. And then finish commit is also going to set work tree to nil, so that you could start another commit later. Okay. So that's the basic like helper functionality. And then what else? I just remembered I had some coffee. All right. Now PullPow is kind of like the tying everything together part. So I have this new structure that has a version control client. It's the interface. So like I said, it is using a GitHub client right now, but the idea is that eventually you could support different version control clients. So it's creating this GitHub client. It's pretty bare bones because like you saw, a lot of the work is actually in the GitHub client itself. Let's see. Okay, and then I have this pick issue function. Pick issue selects an issue from the version control server and returns the selected issue, as well as the LLM prompt needed to fulfill the request. So it lists the open issues from the VC client. If there are no issues, it returns issue not found. I deliberately did not hit this case because I haven't handled it very elegantly. But when it's a server, I would expect that like if it doesn't see any issues, it waits some amount of time and then checks again. Or even better, if GitHub or your like Git server then can like hit your bot server whenever a new issue is created, and then that way there's no need for polling. It can just go ahead and start the work as soon as an issue is created. That would be cool. That's probably like for later. I don't know how to do that yet. Okay, then it parses the file list. I forgot that I was doing this outside of the LLM package. It is going through every file in the file list. It's getting the local file from the version control client for the locally checked out repository. And then it's populating a change request structure from the LLM package, subject, body, issue ID, and files. Remember, issue ID in this case, for my purposes, is the GitHub issue number. It is not the actual like GitHub issue ID according to like what GitHub would set as the ID. It's kind of like the local. I'm considering it to be like the local internal to the repository identifier. Then it's returning that. And then I have some variations of this pick issue function. One, pick issue to clipboard, which is what I've been using throughout this video, which just calls pick issue and then copies the value to the clipboard. And then pick issue to file, which is the same thing except it's writing to a file instead of copying to the clipboard. Okay. And then there's the other side of things. Now you have the LLM response, and you are ready to process it. That's what this process response does. It parses the LLM response, updates the files in the local Git repository accordingly, and opens a new code change request. So, one, parse LLM response, which is passed in as an argument, as a string. And it also passed in is the code change request, the original request, because there is some useful information there, such as the issue number. So you can say resolves issue number. Also, the subject of the code change request, the subject of the issue, is currently used as the header of the commit message. I'll show you that in a second. So you start, so we parse the response, we start the commit. For each file in the code change response, we replace or add the local file to the locally cloned repository. And then let's see, code change request dot subject. Yeah, so this is the subject from the original issue plus 2 new lines plus the notes from the LLM's response plus 2 new lines plus resolves number and then the GitHub issue number. Then we call finish commit. Then we call open code change request, and we're done. Okay, there's one more thing, but this is the messiest part of the repository, so it's a little embarrassing. But this is kind of like the basic structure of the command line command. It's using Cobra, SPF 13 Cobra, as the library for the command line interface. It has some basic help text and stuff. It has a bunch of configuration values. Here it's creating some initial setup so that it can create a new pull pal from that package I just showed you. And then this is like a loop that continues where it alternates between calling pick issue to clipboard or pick issue to file. In this case, there's this -c. If I can... this command I ran, you'll notice I had this -c flag, and that actually is what uses prompt to clipboard rather than pick issue to file. Um, okay, after that happens, then it it processes the response from a file after you press enter. This is what blocks until you press enter. Um, and then the loop continues until you exit. Um, this is where I'm setting up the flags. This is something that I would like to clean up. I don't think that any of them are explicitly required. You'll see errors if one of the required ones is not provided, but I think I need to make them required at a lower level or higher level, whichever one it is. But right now there's handle and email, so this would be like mobvb for me and mobvb@gmail.com. But ultimately I want these to be the handle and email for the bot, right? So like I would have a separate GitHub account for the bot, and that's what this handle and email would be. And then repo handle would be the owner of the repository, because repo handle is what's used to generate the URL of like github.com/mobvb/repository name, right? So ideally mobvb occurs here, but this is like Moby's digital assistant or Moby's like cool bot or whatever. This stuff, I was like learning how to do this last night, so I don't completely understand it, but basically the way that this is set up is I have some defaults defined here, right? So this like third argument here for each of these is the default. I believe this stuff in combination with this and this, or like this function, it will use a local config file if it exists that will override any of these. So that config file would look like vim whatever.yaml. It would look like handle Moby's bot email Moby's bot at mail.test. Like basically this is what your YAML file would look like, and if it was provided, it would you could use it. In fact, I could use this whatever.text whatever.yaml right now. I could say -c for clipboard, and then I can add --config equals whatever.yaml. It's saying the repository is not found because it's using the defaults, which is not a repository that exists. I think that this automatic environment should also allow you to use environment variables to override everything, like even what's in the config file. So like, and this is the environment prefix. So in theory, I should be able to like say export polpal underscore like handle equals Moby's bot, and then use that. Like that should override what's in my config file, and it should override the defaults from the code. But that I have not been able to figure out how to get that to work. That's the main reason I haven't shown you my actual config file, because I do currently have my GitHub access token in that file. Normally I would have put that in a environment variable and only had stuff that was not secret in my YAML file, and then that way I would be able to show it to you and just not show that environment variable. Anyway, I think that's it. I would love to hear anybody's input. You can always email me at mobyvb@gmail.com, mobyvb@gmail.com. I would love to have other people contribute to it. I have given the repository a GPL license. It's mobyvb/pull-pal on GitHub. GPL license meaning that It's free to use, redistribute, even make money on. Just if you make any modifications, those should also be GPL licensed. Um, but yeah, thank you for watching. I don't even know how long this recording is. Oh wow, almost an hour. All right, well, thank you, and maybe talk to you later.